Noah had never seen his boss hesitate before, and that was the first thing that unsettled him. Alina Marquez was the kind of woman who moved through the office like she owned every second of it. Her heels clicked with purpose. Her voice never shook. Her eyes held steady, sharp, observant, impossible to read. For 2 years, Noah had worked under her leadership at the marketing firm in downtown Chicago, and in all that time, he had only known her as calm, focused, and slightly distant. She praised good work, corrected mistakes without cruelty, and kept her private life locked behind a polite smile. That was why when she stepped out of her glass office at nearly 7 in the evening and walked straight toward his desk, he felt something shift in the air. Most employees had already left. The office lights were dimmed, casting long shadows over empty desks. Noah was finishing a campaign report, his sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, music playing softly in one earbud. He didn't hear her approach, he only felt it. When he looked up, she was standing there, hands lightly clasped in front of her, watching him with an expression he couldn't name. "Still working?" she asked. He pulled out the earbud quickly, just wrapping up the Henderson file. "Send it before I leave." She nodded, but she didn't move away. That alone made his pulse pick up. Alina was efficient. She didn't linger without reason. "Noah," she said after a brief pause, "are you free tonight?" The question landed harder than it should have. Free tonight? From his boss. His mind ran through possibilities. Emergency meeting. Last-minute client issue. Corporate dinner? "I think so," he replied carefully. "Is something wrong?" She inhaled slowly, almost as if she were steadying herself. "No, nothing is wrong. I'd like you to come over to my house." The office felt smaller. The hum of the air conditioner grew louder. He stared at her, searching her face for a sign that this was strictly business. She wasn't smiling in her usual controlled way. Her expression was softer, serious. "There's something important I need to tell you," she added. For a moment, Noah forgot how to respond. He had always respected her, maybe even admired her more than he should have. But this felt personal. "What kind of important?" he asked quietly. "Not work," she said. That answered nothing and everything at once. He agreed before his brain could stop him. She gave him her address, a calm "I'll see you at 8," and walked back into her office as if she had just assigned a routine task. Noah sat frozen for a full minute after she disappeared behind the glass door. What was this about? He packed up slowly, his thoughts racing. Alina was married. He had seen the ring on her finger countless times. She rarely mentioned her husband, but she never hid the fact either. Inviting an employee to her home at night wasn't normal. It wasn't something a woman in a happy marriage did casually. By the time he reached his apartment, his mind had created 10 different scenarios. Maybe she was resigning and wanted to offer him a higher position before announcing it. Maybe she was facing a lawsuit. Maybe she trusted him with something confidential. Or maybe this wasn't about work at all. He changed his shirt 3 times before settling on a simple, dark blue button-down. Not too formal, not too casual. He stared at himself in the mirror longer than usual. He wasn't a reckless man. He had worked hard to build his career. He wasn't going to risk it over imagination. Still, his heart wouldn't slow down at exactly 8. He stood outside her house in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. The place was elegant but not flashy. Soft lights glowed behind tall windows. The porch light was already on, as if she had been waiting. He knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Alina stood there without her office armor, no blazer, no sharp heels. Her dark hair fell loosely over her shoulders. She wore a cream sweater and fitted jeans. Minimal makeup. She looked younger somehow, or maybe just more real. "Hi," she said gently. "Hi." For a second, neither of them moved. Then she stepped aside to let him in. The house smelled faintly of vanilla and fresh linen. It was warm, quiet, almost too quiet. No television noise, no distant conversation. no sign of anyone else. Can I get you something? Water? Tea? She asked. Water is fine. He followed her into the kitchen, noticing the neat counters, the organized shelves. Everything about the house reflected control, order. But there was an emptiness too. No framed family photos in sight. No clutter. No signs of shared living. They sat at a small dining table, 2 glasses of water between them. A candle burned, softly in the center, casting flickering shadows on the walls. He waited for her to speak instead. She studied him, not in a way that made him uncomfortable, just thoughtful, careful. You look nervous, she said. He gave a faint smile. Should I be? Her lips curved slightly, but it wasn't her professional smile. It was smaller, private. I didn't invite you here to make you uncomfortable. Then? Why did you invite me? There it was. The question that had followed him all evening. She looked down at her hands for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter than he had ever heard it. Because I trust you. The words settled between them. Trust. It wasn't a word she used lightly. At work, she valued results, strategy, precision. Trust felt personal. You're one of the few people who never tries to impress me, she continued. You just do. Your job, you stay late when you don't have to. You speak honestly, even when others stay quiet. Noah felt heat rise to his face. Compliments from her were rare. I just care about the work, he said. I know, she replied. Why this is difficult. His stomach tightened. Difficult. She leaned back slightly, as if creating distance to think clearly. I've spent years building control in every part of my life. Career, image, reputation. But lately, I feel like I'm losing control of something. He didn't interrupt. She met his eyes directly now. My thoughts, she said. The silence that followed was heavy, but not awkward. It was charged with something unspoken. He could hear his heartbeat in his ears. Alina. He began carefully. If this is about something I've done, it's not, she interrupted gently. You've done nothing wrong. That should have calmed him. It didn't. She stood and walked toward the large living room window. Outside, the street was still, peaceful. Inside, tension built like a quiet storm. I don't usually mix my personal life with work, she said, without turning around. In fact, I avoid it at all costs. I've noticed, he said before thinking. She glanced back at him briefly, a faint hint of amusement in her eyes. Yes, I'm sure you have. Then her expression softened again. But sometimes life doesn't follow the rules we create. His throat felt dry. She turned fully now, leaning lightly against the window frame. The candlelight highlighted the seriousness in her face. I invited you here because I needed to talk without office walls around us, she said. Without titles, Noah felt the meaning in that sentence. Without titles, not boss, not employee, just Alina and Noah. The shift made his pulse quicken. What do you want to tell me? He asked quietly. She walked back toward the table, but didn't sit immediately. She stopped a few feet away from him, close enough that he could see the faint tension in her jaw. I'm at a point in my life where I have to make decisions, she said slowly. Decisions I've avoided for years. He waited, and somehow, she continued, you became part of that decision. His breath caught. He hadn't expected that. I don't understand, he admitted. I know, she said softly. That's why this is hard. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Air felt warm. The candle flame flickered again. She finally sat down across from him, closer this time. When you joined the company 2 years ago, she said, I saw potential. Talent, that's why I pushed you harder than the others. He remembered the late-night emails, the tough critiques, the extra assignments. I thought you were just strict, he said with a small smile. I was, she admitted, but I was also watching. The word echoed in his chest. Not in a way that crossed lines, she clarified quickly. But I noticed your integrity, the way you treat people, the way you listen. He didn't know where this was. leading, but every word felt like a step toward something irreversible. "You deserve honesty," she said. The sentence felt like the edge of a cliff. And suddenly, Noah realized that whatever she was about to reveal would change everything between them. He just didn't know if he was ready to hear it. Alina held his gaze for a long second, then looked down as if choosing her words with care. The quiet in the room felt different, no longer polite, but fragile. Noah sat still, every sense alert. He had walked into her house thinking this might be about work, maybe even about his future in the company. Instead, he felt like he was standing at the edge of something deeply personal. "I've been married for 12 years, she began, her voice calm but heavy. Noah nodded slowly. He knew that much. He had seen the ring. He had heard her mention my husband once or twice in meetings, always in a neutral tone. "But my marriage has been over for a long time," she continued. The words were simple, but they carried years inside them. She didn't cry. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. "We live in the same house," she said. "We attend events together. We smile in photos. That's all it is. Photos, appearances."
All right.
Noah felt a tightness in his chest. He had never imagined her life outside the office. To him, she had always been strong, controlled, almost untouchable. "When we first married, we were different," she said, staring at the candle flame. "We were ambitious. We supported each other. We talked about everything. But over time, success changed us. Or maybe it revealed who we really were." She folded her hands together on the table. "He built his own company. I built my career. We told ourselves we were busy. That distance was normal. But one day I realized we had stopped talking about real things. We only discussed schedules, bills, public events." Noah stayed silent. He didn't want to interrupt something that clearly cost her effort to share. "There was no big fight," she added. "No betrayal, no dramatic moment. Just silence, growing slowly." That kind of ending felt sadder than anger. "I tried to fix it," she said. "Counseling, trips, long conversations at midnight. But you can't force two people to feel what they no longer feel." Her eyes lifted to his, and somewhere in the middle of that emptiness, "You joined my team." His heart skipped. "I didn't notice it at first," she admitted. "You're just another new hire. Quiet, focused, serious." He almost smiled at that description. "But then I started seeing the small things," she continued. "The way you defend your ideas without arrogance. The way you stay calm when others panic. The way you thank the receptionist every morning." Hadn't realized she paid attention to such details. It reminded me of something she said softly. "What?" he asked. "What it feels like to admire someone?" The air shifted. Noah swallowed, unsure how to breathe properly. "I fought it," she said quickly. "I told myself it was respect, professional appreciation. Nothing more. I am your boss. I was married. I have rules." Her voice grew firmer at that word. "But emotions don't follow company policies." The honesty in that sentence hit him harder than anything else. "There were days I avoided walking past your desk," she confessed. "Not because you did anything wrong, but because I knew if I stopped to talk, I would stay longer than necessary." He replayed moments in his mind, short conversations, lingering eye contact, quiet smiles. "You probably never noticed," she added. "I noticed," said quietly before he could stop himself. Her eyes searched his face. "Not clearly," he corrected. "Just something different." She let out a slow breath. "That's what scared me," she said. "That it wasn't one-sided." Silence filled the room again, but this time it felt exposed. "I never crossed a line," she continued firmly. "I never said anything inappropriate. I never touched you in a way that wasn't professional, and I never will." He believed her, but the feelings were there, she said. And I had to ask myself why. She stood up again, pacing slowly across the living room. As if movement helped her think. It wasn't about you being younger, she said, or attractive. It wasn't about excitement. It was about how I felt when I spoke to you. Present. Alive. Her voice softened. You listened to me in meetings like my words mattered. You challenged me without trying to compete. You saw me as a person, not just a title. Noah's throat tightened. I hadn't felt that in years. She said he realized then that this wasn't a story about temptation. It was about loneliness. I went home one night after a long meeting, she continued, and I looked at my husband across the dinner table. He was on his phone. I was answering emails. We didn't speak for 30 minutes. Shook her head slightly, and I thought, when did we become strangers? The candle flickered again, casting shadows. Across her face, I'm not proud that meeting you forced me to see what was missing, she said. But it did. Noah stood slowly, unsure whether to move closer or stay where he was. So, what are you saying? He asked carefully. She stopped pacing and faced him fully. I filed for divorce last week. The words fell into the room like a quiet explosion. He stared at her. I didn't do it because of you, she said quickly. Please understand that. I did it because I was already gone emotionally. Meeting you just made me realize how empty I had allowed my life to become. His mind struggled to process everything at once. You filed? He repeated softly. Yes. Does he know? Yes. And he wasn't surprised. That answer hurt more than anything else. We both knew, she said. We just didn't want to be the first to say it. Noah felt a wave of emotion he couldn't name. Relief, shock, fear. I needed to end my marriage honestly before speaking to you like this, she said. I would never start something new built on secrets. The respect in her decision struck him deeply. She stepped closer, stopping a few feet away from him. I invited you here because I needed to know if what I felt was real, or just something I imagined in my loneliness. Her eyes were steady now. No fear, just vulnerability. Do you feel anything for me, Noah? The question hung in the air, direct and impossible to ignore. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure. She could hear it. He thought about every meeting, every shared glance, every moment he had pushed the thought away, 'cause it felt wrong. He thought about the way his mood lifted when she praised his work, the way he felt protective when clients challenged her unfairly, the way he noticed when she seemed tired. He had buried those feelings under logic and discipline, but they were there. Yes, he admitted quietly. The word felt powerful. Her breath caught slightly, but she didn't move closer. For how long? She asked. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe longer than I realized. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to steady himself. I ignored it because you're my boss, he continued. And because you were married. I didn't want to be that person. You're not, she said firmly. He met her eyes again. I respect you too much to ever cross a line, he said. A faint, grateful smile touched her lips. That's why I told you everything, she replied. No secrets, no games. The room felt warmer now, but the tension hadn't disappeared. It had simply changed. What happens now? He asked. She hesitated for the first time since her confession. I don't know, she admitted. Still legally married until the divorce is final. And you still work for me. Reality returned quickly. We could ruin everything, he said. Yes, she agreed, and people would talk. Yes, and it could affect your company. I know. They stood there, both fully aware of the risk. But doing nothing also feels dishonest, she said softly, pretending there's nothing here. He understood that too. The attraction between them wasn't reckless or impulsive. It had grown quietly, built on respect and shared values. That made it harder to ignore. I'm not asking you for anything tonight, she said gently. I just needed you to know the truth. And I needed to hear yours. He appreciated that more than she probably realized. Outside, a car passed slowly down the street. The normal sound felt distant from the intensity inside the house. Alina. He said carefully, "Are you sure this isn't just because your marriage ended?" She didn't react defensively. She considered the question. "I asked myself that 100 times," she said. "But the feelings started before I filed for divorce. They forced me to confront what I had been avoiding." Her honesty was steady. "I don't want to rush into anything," she added. "I don't want to replace one chapter with another just to fill space." He nodded. "I don't want to be a rebound," he admitted. "You're not," she said. Immediately. "If anything, you're the reason I chose to be alone first." That sentence surprised him. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she said, her voice calm but clear, "I would rather face the end of my marriage honestly than hide behind it while wanting someone else." The weight of her words settled deeply. This wasn't a secret affair. It was a woman choosing truth before desire. And that changed everything. He looked at her differently now, not just as someone he admired, but as someone brave enough to dismantle her own life rather than live a lie. The distance between them felt smaller, yet neither moved to close it. The tension wasn't physical. It was emotional, raw and real. For the first time that night, Noah understood why she had seemed nervous in the office. She wasn't risking her reputation, she was risking her heart. And now, so was he. Noah felt the weight of everything settle on his shoulders, but it did not crush him. It cleared something inside him. Lena stood a few steps away, waiting, not demanding, not pleading. Just waiting for honesty. The candle between them burned. Lower the flame steady, like the quiet strength in her eyes. He had imagined moments like this before. In quick flashes, he always pushed away. But imagination was easy. Reality was complicated. He took a slow breath. "I don't want this to be a mistake," he said. She nodded immediately. "Neither do I." The air felt lighter now that everything had been said. There were no hidden meanings left. No secrets hiding in glances. Just two adults facing something fragile and powerful at the same time. He walked a little closer, stopping. At a respectful distance, he could see the faint shine in her eyes. Not from tears, but from emotion held carefully in place. She had already made a hard choice before tonight. She had chosen to end a marriage that had slowly faded. It took courage he deeply respected. "Alina, I care about you," he said clearly. "But I care about who you are, not just how you make me feel." Her expression softened. "I don't want to be the next chapter just because the last one closed," he continued. "You deserve time, space, a clean break." A small, almost relieved smile appeared on her face. "That's what I hoped you would say." He felt something steady grow inside him. This wasn't wild attraction. It was something slower, stronger. "You're still my boss," he added. "And until your divorce is final, we need boundaries." She agreed without hesitation. At work, nothing changes. Same professionalism, same standards, and outside of work. He asked quietly. She thought for a moment. "Outside of work, we move carefully." The word carefully meant everything. He imagined the whispers that could spread if anyone found out too soon. Office politics could be cruel. One rumor could undo years of effort. He'd worked too hard to build his name. She had built a company from nothing. They could not risk that. But walking away completely felt wrong too. "I don't want to pretend I don't feel this," he admitted. "You don't have to," she said softly. There was something powerful in that answer. No pressure, no urgency. Just permission to be honest. He studied her face, searching for doubt. He found none. What he saw instead was vulnerability wrapped in strength. She wasn't asking him to rescue her. She wasn't leaning on him to fill emptiness. She had already chosen to stand alone. That made her even more compelling. "You know, this will be hard," he said. "I've handled harder," she replied. Gently, he almost smiled. That sounded like the woman who commanded boardrooms. But tonight, she wasn't commanding. She was sharing. He looked around the room, noticing again how quiet the house felt. It no longer felt intimidating. It felt like a place waiting for change. "Does anyone else know about the divorce?" he asked. "Only my lawyer," she answered. "And him." "Ha! And he accepted it. He understood it," she said. "We both knew we were holding on to something that wasn't there." Noah respected that there was no anger in her voice. Bitterness. Just acceptance. "Then we give it time," he said firmly. "Let things settle. Let the divorce finalize. Let you breathe. And you?" she asked. "I'll breathe too," he said with a faint smile. For the first time that night, tension turned into something warmer. Not fire, not urgency. Just warmth. She stepped closer, but not enough to touch him. Close enough that he could feel the space between them shift. "I don't want to lose you," she admitted. "You won't," he replied. "But we do this the right way." She searched his eyes as if confirming he meant it. He did. There was temptation in the air, yes. The kind that could lead to impulsive choices. But neither of them moved recklessly. That restraint made the moment deeper. "I've spent years making strategic decisions," she said quietly. "This feels different because this isn't strategy," he said. "It's heart." It's a word hung between them. Heart. Simple. Dangerous. Honest. She gave a soft exhale, almost a laugh. "You make it sound easy?" "It's not easy," he said. "It's just clear." He surprised himself with how steady he felt. Earlier, his mind had raced with fear and confusion. Now there was clarity. They both wanted something real. That meant patience. He imagined walking into the office Monday morning, seeing her behind the glass walls, acting normal. It would not be simple. But it would be possible. "We'll need rules," he said. "Tell me," she replied. "No private meetings outside work for a while," he began. "No messages that could be misunderstood. No late-night calls, unless it's urgent." She nodded thoughtfully. "Agreed." "And if at any point this feels like it's affecting our judgment at work," he continued, "we step back." Didn't hesitate. Agreed. The maturity of the conversation made everything feel grounded. This wasn't fantasy. It was two responsible people choosing carefully. "And when the divorce is final?" she asked. He looked at her for a long second. "Then we go on a real date," he said. The word date felt almost innocent after everything they had discussed. Her smile this time was brighter. Genuine. A real date. She repeated softly, "Yes. Public, honest." She nodded slowly, as if picturing it. The candle flame flickered again, smaller now. There was a quiet shift in the room. The tension that had once felt heavy now felt hopeful. "You know," she said, "I was afraid you would. Walk out the door tonight." "I thought about it," he admitted honestly. She looked slightly hurt, but he continued, "Not because I don't care, but because caring makes things complicated." "And you stayed," she said. "I stayed." He confirmed. That mattered. They stood there in silence for a moment that felt meaningful but calm. No dramatic gestures. No rushed closeness. Finally, he stepped back slightly. "I should go," he said. She nodded, though something in her eyes wished the night would stretch longer. He walked toward the door, feeling different than when he had arrived, lighter, more aware. The uncertainty that once frightened him now felt like possibility. She followed him to the entrance. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "Thank you for telling me the truth." Her hand hovered near his for a brief second, but she didn't touch him. That restraint spoke louder than any embrace. He opened the door. Cool night air rushed in. "Alina," he said before stepping out. "Yes, no matter what happens, I'm glad you chose honesty." Her eyes softened deeply. "So am I." He stepped onto the porch, then paused. "And for what it's worth," he added, "I've never admired someone the way I admire you." The words were simple, but they carried everything he hadn't said. Her breath caught slightly. "Means more than you know." He gave her one last look before walking toward his car as he drove away. The city lights blurred past, but his thoughts were sharp. He replayed every word, every expression. There was no guilt in his chest, no shame, just anticipation mixed with responsibility. He knew the coming weeks would test them: office pressure, legal steps, emotional adjustments. But he also knew this was not built on secrecy or impulse. It was built on truth, inside the house. Lena stood by the door long after he left. The quiet no longer felt empty. It felt like space, ready to be filled with something new, something chosen freely. She walked back to the living room and blew out the candle. The smoke curled upward, fading slowly. For years she had lived inside, a version of her life that looked perfect from the outside. Tonight she had stepped out of that illusion. It was terrifying. It was freeing, and for the first time in a long time, her heart felt awake. Back in his apartment, Noah stood by his window, staring at the skyline. He understood now that love, when it came the right way, did not demand chaos. It demanded courage, patience, integrity. He didn't know what the future would look like. He didn't know if their connection would survive the challenges ahead. But he knew one thing clearly: whatever happened next would not be built on lies. And that made all the difference.